the hard work is not only what you need to do, but it's like what liberates you. This idea that the hard thing is what liberates you is a really important point to suture into your heart and soul. We are so addicted to wanting the results. What you do get to keep is the process. If you have a strong desire to do something self-destructive, is because there's some sort of responsibility, some sort of hard thing that is really calling you. It's like broken telephone. You want to be the type of person who's liberated, then you got to do the hard thing as a habit. Welcome back to another episode of Love, Life, and Legacy, the podcast dedicated to helping you navigate these hypersexualized times of ours. And in today's episode, Benjy and I are unpacking why it's necessary. If you want liberation, if you want freedom, if you want joy and fulfillment in your life, you need to do hard things. You need to understand the game that you're playing, the rules of the game, and you need to start winning at life in order to feel like a happy, fulfilled person. So we unpack that. But before we get into the episode, you don't have to trust my words. You can trust a former U.S. president's words. I mean, he wasn't the greatest guy in terms of his sexual integrity, but in terms of uniting the country to do difficult things, he was a whiz. And so I want to just cut to an example of why it's worthy of doing hard things, starring JFK.
We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard. Because that goal will serve to organize and measure the best of our energies and skills. Because that challenge is one that we're willing to accept, one we are unwilling to postpone, and one we intend to win, and the others too.
Somebody just messaged me and said that they binged listened to a bunch of the podcasts, and I had the feeling like I needed to send them a disclaimer that could come with consequences. Your head will be filled with my voice, and that may or may not work out well for you. It'll always work out for me, right? Because, then I get just like whoever recorded the voice for Siri. It's a good gig for them. But then every time she tells you the wrong information, you're like, stupid Siri. So I hope I haven't led anybody astray.
I changed the voice on my ChatGPT today because I was just frustrated with the voice. He just started sounding too like, people do this thing where they talk with an intonation, like, hey, how's it going? My name is Benjy. This is a phone. Like everything's a question, even though it's not a question. And then I was noticing that, and I just got, anyways, yeah. To your point,
It's called being Canadian. Canadians don't make a statement. If they want to tell you that they hate you, they'll be like, I hate you?
I think, yeah.
You can't do it.
Right?
Yeah, so guys and gals, listen up, okay? I was talking to a mentee, and it was just so clear that what he was struggling with was the difficult leap between knowing you have to do something difficult that you don't want to do and doing it. And I realized that's at the heart of most of our struggles, whether it's, especially with sexual integrity. Like you imagine you're just at home minding your own business, and then I talked to another mentee, and he had a slip, and it's like, what happened? It's like, he got into a fight with his mom, and then he was in a bad mood, and then he went to his room, and then he started zoning out and blah, blah, blah. That right there, you're like, okay, then it's like emotional issues. Okay, that's like the easy thing to assess. But if you look a layer deeper, it's like, you didn't like how that conversation ended, and you don't yet have the tools to have that difficult conversation to be like, I didn't like how this conversation ended, and I want to make this better. Right, which would then leave you feeling closer to that person, in this case, his mom. But it's and then you walk away feeling like, I love my mom, and then a completely different state going to bed than feeling butthurt, feeling like life isn't fair, feeling like people don't understand you, aka let's just scroll for hours, right?
Yeah.
And so that leap of like doing the hard work isn't so clear all the time. Sometimes it's abundantly clear. Like, oh, I have an exam tomorrow and it's really hard and it means a lot to me and I don't want to fail and I also don't want to study. And so I'm just going to run away, right? So that's obvious. But then there's those subtle ones where the hard work, maybe you don't even know. Maybe like for me, I thought I had my purpose in life from about 12 until 27. It was very clear what I needed to do. And then since joining the church, not so clear. So my struggles, deepest struggles of like doing something hard is like figuring out how to take the next step, even though I don't have that clear calling sign, like this is your purpose of life, right? So sometimes it's much more subtle, but the point remains that the hard work is not only what you need to do, but it's like what liberates you in the end. Right? Do you know what I'm saying? Let's unpack that.
Yeah. Give me some examples. I mean, the obvious ones come to mind are things with sexual integrity, porn, masturbation, because, we both talk to people that are struggling with their integrity, and they don't want to be, they want to have integrity. They want to follow their values and follow their heart and their faith and their beliefs, but they are succumbed to, like you say, these feelings and lacking tools of knowing how to do it, right? One guy comes to mind in particular who, this was years ago, he was really struggling with porn particularly, and I suggested out of nowhere, after listening to him, I was like, hey, why don't you get porn blocker, like software? And it just sounds like it'll help your situation in particular, right? And then he's like, well, I don't want to do that because I don't want to be the guy that's relying on software just to not watch porn. And I was like, okay, sure, but what you're doing right now is not working, so why don't we try something else, right? And so I kind of dilly-dallied for a bit, and then eventually he realized on his own that the reason he wasn't doing it was not the reasons he thought, because that was exactly the thing he needed to do, is just to block access for him on his devices to using adult content, right? And by doing that, it wasn't the software itself that helped him, break free. It was the action of doing something that was hard and took a little courage and money and some skin in the game to actually do something, because it like sent this jolting signal through his entire system that like, I'm serious about this now. I don't know if this is going to work, but it's the thing I'm avoiding. And I was recommended to get it, to get some software, and then he did it, and it was really good for him, And so that was an example that came to mind of something that is like the hard thing to do, and we just avoid it because we make up reasons why it won't work or why we shouldn't do it. And for him, it was like, oh, I don't want to have a crutch. That's the word he used. I don't want to have a crutch to avoid my, behavior. But it actually saved him. And
So
that was
I'll
the thing
just,
he needed to do. Yeah.
but it's like a triple layer of poetic justice or irony in the wrong context. This idea that I don't want a crutch, so I'm just going to stay reliant on the crutch that I know, which is porn.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Yeah, so that's
That's it.
the thing. So this idea that the hard thing is what liberates you is a really important point to suture into your heart and soul, because we are so addicted to wanting the results. We're in a very materialistic society that's all about the results. So like, oh man, there's an entire Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok channel that's dedicated to billionaires pulling up to this one restaurant in Monaco in their supercars so that people can nerd out on like, man, man, I wish I, cause so you're addicted to like the wanting of the result. It's hilarious, right? And that's how we're wired from a very early age, is to want what other people created. But you don't get to keep any of that, right? What you do get to keep is the process. And that's the slap in the face. Is like, that's what nobody wants, But that's actually the valuable aspect, is who you become by doing the hard thing. And it sounds like such trite, boring advice. Like, oh, you want to be healthier? Eat more fiber and you'll poo more. Got to keep you. Nobody wants to hear that. They want to be like, what's
Drink
the
more
pill?
water.
Give me the pill. Yeah. So then doing the hard thing, it doesn't mean all the time, because there's definitely the, like hustle porn and effort porn, like Dave Goggins, this line of thinking, which is like, it's all about living in the state of perpetual, unending effort and hard work. That's what etches you out, because he's, Navy SEAL kind of thinking. And great, that works for a very tiny subsect of, like, I would want my Navy SEALs to live like that. I don't want them to ever be like hanging out by the beach, zoned out, being like, we're just having a good time. No, like, you're Navy SEAls.
Yeah.
Just, you're on call all the time.
Lifeguards. Was it Baywatch lifeguards?
No breaks. No breaks. That's great. You be obsessive. Great. Let's put all of our obsessive compulsive people in the Navy SEALs. But for day-to-day life, you do need to breathe in and out. You need to chill sometimes, for sure. But when there's something that is calling you, here's the crazy thing. I'm just realizing it as I'm saying it. If there is something calling you to escape, if your phone is beckoning, if you are scrolling, that means that escape is calling, and it means that responsibility is also calling. You just haven't actually bothered to listen, right? So it's equal parts. If you have a strong desire to do something self-destructive, is because there's some sort of responsibility, some sort of hard thing that is really calling you, but it's like broken telephone. And this evil thing is taking the message from the responsibility and it's twisting it and be like, you don't have to listen to that guy. It's the whole story of Adam and Eve, is like the snake is like, God said this, but let me tell you what he really meant.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to get personal, I think, because I'm trying to think of an example, but I just think of a recent thing that I learned or had to do the hard way. And it's easy to share stories in hindsight, because like it's a cool story, but let me tell you, the thing I really struggled with a lot in the last 10 years since having kids is sleep. Primarily going to sleep at a reasonable time, right? So that I can have higher quality sleep, And so I was going to sleep at like 12, 1 a.m., 2 a.m. sometimes, just working, just working, watching South Park or Dragon Ball, those two episodes.
Those are two very different things, by the way.
Very,
just working, jumping on trampoline, watching South Park, working.
All right. Now you understand my character a little bit, guys. South Park or Dragon Ball. That's the world my mind lives in. And so, especially with having kids, it's like that was my me time, my personal time. But it came to the point where it actually really affected my relationship with my wife, because she, is waking up earlier with the children, because we've always had like a little kid, in our house. And so she's waking up early.
Who was this little kid?
Like first
always had
Kojin. It's foster
but they're
home.
Your kids.
Yama foster home. Yes.
But the way that you phrased it, it's not like you had a series of kids, and definitely not that they were yours, but that there's just one little kid who is always a little kid and always in your house.
A little mystery to the imagination, Andrew. All right. There's children rotating into our house every so often. All right. And so my wife is staying up with the baby, right? And or like, waking up earlier. And she always her biggest complaint to me was she wished I would wake up earlier with her and like help out and eat breakfast together. That was her dream. It's like, can we just eat breakfast together? And I was just like, okay, I'll try. And I would go on and off. I feel like an addict, right? I would go on and off of like waking up early and spending time with her, and then crashing because I was just so exhausted. But I never made a concerted effort to change the habit, the behavior of sleeping earlier rather than later. And so it was just perpetually me trying and then failing, and then like sleeping until like 8:30, and then feeling, terrible again, and having to be woken up by the kids, which is a terrible feeling, right? As opposed to me, waking up according to my own clock. And then, and then recently it was actually because of my own reflection. It stopped becoming because my wife was asking me, even though I wanted to do that, like wake up earlier for her and for the kids too. It was because I was reflecting, like do I want to do this? Do I want to wake up earlier? Do I want to be a supportive husband? Do I want to do a loving thing to my wife? And then through that process of self-reflection, I realized that I was mathematically losing so much time every night because of poor sleep quality. And so I calculated for me, I was essentially wasting 2 hours a night of poor quality. In other words, if I slept earlier, I would have had better quality and required less sleep because of circadian
You'd
rhythm,
be
et
less
cetera,
of
right?
a jerk at work, that's for
Yes,
sure.
I would just be, more energized when I woke up. And then I discovered my own, based on my own impact of my life, that like, this is 2 hours a day, which is extrapolated over a year. If you do the math, is an entire month, right? And then I was like, oh my goodness. And then I extrapolate that over a lifetime. It's years of my life that I have actually could have gotten back if I had prioritized just sleeping earlier, right? So, so for me, that was like the kicker, because I made it, it was a hard thing for me to do, to actually get to a place where I wanted to see the long-term benefits and not just like try to wake up with an alarm and beat myself up for sleeping in or whatever, but actually create a lifestyle change where I am in bed at 10 p.m. Like I'm strict religiously about this with my kids. I'm like, sorry guys, I'm going to be in bed at 10, and this is for you guys. This is for our whole family. I need to do this, you know? And so I've been doing that for the last few months, and it's been totally life-changing for me, like energy-wise, but also for our family, and obviously for my wife, because she just is able to have breakfast with me in the morning, and then she just loves that, right? And she feels a lot of love. But my point is that it was a hard decision, like, to get to this point, but I'm really feeling the impact of making that decision right now in my life.
Yeah. Yeah. Amen. Religion. That's Benji's religion. He said his religion is
My
sleep.
religion.
Praise to the God
Sleep.
of pillows. Yeah, that's great. Yeah. So this idea of doing the hard thing it's very sneaky, right? Like if going to bed earlier is the hard thing, that's not an obvious, right in front of you, clear action step that you need to take all the time, unless you start really assessing what are you avoiding and you get good at playing that game. Because yeah, it comes in all shapes and sizes. I'd like for us to just rattle off some examples, because this definitely impacts you. We all do it. And due to the fact that we live in a world where it's easier to escape than ever in all of history, it could be the hard thing that you are avoiding could be just making eye contact with people, when you go somewhere. So many people are on their phones because they don't know how to make eye contact anymore. People are, I would say, more socially awkward than ever because they're more isolated than ever. They're more on their phones than ever because we haven't had phones, as far as we know, in the past. So
Maybe the Egyptians had phones.
yeah, you never know these, whatever. So just disclaimer, maybe. But as far as we know, and so it's like these small things that add up to a feeling, an overall feeling of yourself, right? How do you feel about yourself? Well, if you are doing the hard things, you feel actually really good about yourself. That's the thing, is like going to the gym. I was at the gym yesterday, and my gym pass expired, and I'm leaving in 2 weeks, but I had to pay for a whole nother month. And out here, I don't want to insult an entire, group of people, but let's just say in Mongolia, service and kindness in terms of like, a customer experience is very optional. And most people do not opt in for that. So well, most of the time when I go in, the lady doesn't even look at me. She doesn't say hi or anything. She just gives me a key or whatever. So I was like, do I want to go through this? And I could just work out at home. But I love the act of going somewhere and doing exercises that I've consented to. Like I create a regimen for myself. Like, this is going to be your journey today. Just doing it. Like I find, like, I'm not going for gains here. But just doing it allows me, obviously there's like a chemical reward, right? When you exercise, you do just naturally release different hormones and you feel good more just as a consequence, but also who I get to say I am. I am the type of person that does this because I know it's good for me now and I know it's good for me later, and I did it. that is stacking those things in your day allows you to go to sleep being like, yeah, I did it. I did today. And I'm definitely not 100%. Yesterday avoided eye contact with this lady, or I looked at her for a little bit. She's talking to my wife, and I kind of looked at her, and then I looked away, and I was like, why did I just look away? And so I still have stuff to work on. I didn't look at my phone, but I didn't she wanted to stare at me. It was some lady that my wife knew, and I just wasn't in the mood for being stared at or for staring, because I'm a bit of an anomaly, right? Being the white man out here. So I just wasn't up for it. So not 100%, but when you do intentionally go out of your way to put, like yesterday when I was leaving the house, I realized I'm in my head right now. I need to look out into the world. This is the hard thing for me at that time. I'm walking from here to there. I need to look at people and give them something, because right now I just look grumpy or, whatever. So it can be so small and subtle, right? And this is what we teach in one of our talks, this idea of, acts of courage and bravery in movies. It's usually this one defining act. Like when the little guy stands up to the big guy, it's David and Goliath. And that's what we celebrate. But those people aren't able to get to those big acts of courage unless they do these small acts of courage throughout their days and weeks until it becomes inculcated or practiced, well practiced, right? And so that's you. If you want to be the type of person who's liberated, then you got to do the hard thing as a habit, right? And I'm going to include it in the intro, the JFK speech, which was really phenomenal, because I don't love that dude. I don't know that I love any politician, based on the fact that they're all whatever. But that speech is remarkable. And what he was able to do is they poured billions of dollars. And at that time, billions of dollars was like a number that nobody even understood, into going to space. And he got everybody mobilized in the country. And it's like, this is not going to be easy. And that's the point. We're going to do this because it's hard. And as a nation, I heard the founder of ESPN was talking about during World War II, they were recycling things like crazy because they didn't have a lot of factory workers, right? Because everybody's at war. So a lot of women started going to work, which is cool. But also they were just lacking in a lot of things production-wise because they didn't have machines as much or whatever. So they did a national recycling campaign. Not for the sake of looking green and looking like I'm eco-conscious, but so they could reuse stuff because they didn't have enough stuff. And he said that everybody mobilized in the whole country and were happy to, because that was them contributing to the war efforts, right? We are going to be self-sufficient as a nation because the guys are over there fighting this battle, and this is how we can help. And he said, that's our nation at its best, is when we start fighting over these petty differences and when we start focusing on unifying for a goal. And it's the same thing with your faculties. If you have a workout and you really invested in it, you're not thinking about anything else. You're focused on that. And that you get the benefit of being a unified, whole entity, a harmonized being, a symbiotic being, rather than, my genitals want me to go this way and my mind wants me to go this way and my heart wants me to go this way. That's when you're completely divided and separated as a being. So it really benefits us to do hard things as an individual, as families, and as communities. And without that, you don't get to unlock that superpower that you only get when you do the hard things.
Hey, so you're a man or woman of faith. You want to have a radiant blessing and family, but you're weighed down by the reality of unwanted sexual behavior, porn, masturbation. You know the drill. If you want to get rid of this stuff and take this seriously, check out the High Noon program called Ascend. It is available for you guys. It's totally for free at highnoon.org. And we want to help guide you through this process of eliminating these shadows from your life, like so many hundreds of others have in the Ascend program. So check it out, highnoon.org. See ya.
Yeah, hard things will be harder to come by in the coming future. I mean, it's already happening.
Yeah.
If you just compare nations, for example, first, second, third world countries, the amount of struggle that is required versus what's optional is vast, night and day. And so I'll bring this up because I was looking into recently True Father talked a lot about this idea of the leisure industry, which he was
Yeah.
talking about decades ago, by the way, I'll add, about a time that will come, an era in which automation and technology will be so advanced that people will have so much abundance of time and money that they won't need to work for struggle. They won't need to struggle as a requirement for life. And so
Sure.
it really does beg the question of like, okay, what do people do? Right? Because if you just give, and this is already happening, like if you give a child, a trust fund kid millions of dollars without an effort of work for it,
Oh, they're miserable.
what's going to happen to them if they don't find some way to choose hard stuff and some way to struggle or some way to advance and to grow, right? And so I was like, this is happening already, right, for many families, and it's going to happen in a wider scale moving forward. And so it's a beautiful concept. To me, it's not scary at all. This is awesome. Like, I'm so excited for my kids to have a life in which they get to choose hardship. They can choose, and it's like it's something that they choose because they love to grow and they love to challenge themselves. They love to serve. They have an abundance of resources and time to actually do things that they feel called to and not just waste it around, right?
Yeah.
And so that's really like speaking to me right now. And I feel that it's coming a time where, like, kind of like how when you choose to love someone rather than forced to love them, that love is so much more powerful. When you choose to love your wife because you love them, not because you have a bunch of options or you don't have options and there's no one else, right? But you choose her because, or him, if you're a woman, God, okay, you choose
You
your,
are frying yourself
you
a pickle
choose
right
your
now.
spouse. If you're a man, you choose your wife. If you're a woman, you choose your man, because
Benji. Just kidding.
because because God designed it that your love is more powerful that way. Because yes, there are options. Yes, there's this weird thing that we've maybe inherited from the fall or society or culture that, people are interested in many different individuals, but even so we choose one person. That love is more powerful that way. And I think at the same time, when we have an abundance of money, right, we decide I want to give it because I have too much and I have so much time. I'm deciding to volunteer and to serve because I have too much. Like that, how powerful that is. Just thinking about like Uncle Dave, Aunt Mitsu, Wolfenbergers, their ability to like invest their time and money into High Noon to create what it is now. And that's their like joy, and that's their pride. And that's what they do with all their energy and time and free time. Right. And it's a beautiful thing. So, I think that kind of world of like automation is really exciting actually, because it leaves us with a lot of questions and probably a lot of struggle, but people will face that question. Okay, now what do I do?
It's a great point. And a lot of times your limitations or like your sense of responsibility will actually tell you a lot about your life decisions, right? So for instance, let's say you have a really hard exam in school. It will be hard to do no matter what, to study and to do well, to care, right? But in those moments, if you are actually doing that course or you're in school for a very intentional reason because you have life goals and going to that school and that course is a means to that end, you will find so much energy to study, right? Because you have a purpose. It's like connected to something bigger beyond just that test, that exam. But if not, it's actually revealing that you don't know what you're doing and you're just kind of in school for no particular reason at all or because of pressure or whatever, right? So this struggle, like that's why working out, I started working out when I was like 16 because I was just super skinny and I wanted to not be skinny. And then I started to get validation from other people. They're like, yo, you've been working out. I'm like, yeah, I've been working out, right? And so I started doing it for, like vanity. And then I just kind of did it because it felt better to work out than not, right? Later. And now I do it so that I can just be a functional, healthy person. Because when I stop working out, I can see my body starting to break down very quickly. My back starts to hurt. I start to get headaches, like tension headaches. The weirdest things that you wouldn't. So like I have every incentive to work out so that I could be a vital person who just attacks the day. I feel so much. That's why I stretch first thing in the morning and last thing at night, because my body
Yes.
thanks me for it at this point. So when you start getting used to doing the hard thing, your body, your mind, your spirit starts to crave the hard thing, because it's like a Ferrari or a supercar. This is my second shout out to supercars today. If you put crappy gas, like normal gas that you would put in a Ford Pinto, shout out to 1987 Ford Pinto, it will break down because it needs premium gas, right? Our breakdowns are a lot more subtle. So if you don't give your mind really premium ideas, it can coast for a while until you just get really frustrated and you don't know why. Same with junk emotions. You can go around gossiping and complaining for a while and not see the consequences until you hit a wall. And then you're like, why am I such a resentful, bitter person? Well, it's that at scale. So we don't notice the consequences at first. Similarly, you might not see the benefits at first, like when you start working out, for instance, or when you start taking up a habit. It's just annoying at first, and then you don't see the benefits for a while. But when you start to make it, like you said, a lifestyle, and then you lose that lifestyle, you really start to see, oh man, my life was so much better when I was doing the hard thing. There's a little kid behind me. We can all see you, buddy.
Hey, buddy. It's Ozzy.
He was doing the hard thing. He's getting his shorts. So it just becomes like when you can safely say to yourself, I do the hard thing as a priority because I care about whatever it is. So for my body, I eat really well and I don't eat too much junk food as a priority because I really, really care about my health, right? You will see, and then you start eating junk food, your body's going to attack you. You'll be like, what are you doing? We were doing so well, right? But it takes a while. And with sexual integrity, it's like, yeah, restraining following your first desires, that desire to want to zone out and watch porn or whatever, is very difficult in the beginning. And you don't see the rewards in the beginning. But when you start to do the hard thing instead of watching porn, and you start investing in your character, start investing in life, the people around you, it's like going back to porn is you feel the consequences so much more acutely because, yeah, I mean, that analogy of like, man, I was just eating steak and now for some reason I started rummaging through the trash bin, eating leftovers, and I don't know why. That's right.
Yeah. I think people will benefit a lot from figuring out what's most important to them and then structuring their life to feed that priority. And usually it's one or two, like main big priorities, maybe three. But I've noticed that people are pretty bad at having more than two priorities in life because it's like juggling balls. Like you start dropping balls left and right. But like for me, you're talking about why you work out. Because like your health is a priority to me. That's interesting because I was listening to that and I think that
my
for
health
me,
is a priority to you. Is that what you're saying?
to you, yeah. I mean, that's cool.
me.
That's cool. But I never like thought of it like that. But I think I work out. For my kids more than anything. Yeah, and also I enjoy it. I'm trying to think of how to frame this, but like if someone is trying to learn how to enjoy the hard stuff, I would say that first of all, you have to figure out what is it for, like what's driving it, and then secondly, measure it. Because when you measure things, you can actually track progress pretty easily, like day by day. But the problem is people aren't usually tracking the right thing, right? Going back to the gym, you will actually enjoy the hard work of progressive overload if you track it, because every time you hit the gym, you can push out pretty easily one more rep or one more, like 5 pounds heavier or kilos or whatever.
Yeah.
And so if you do that, but if you're just going for, I don't know, vanity or some reason that you don't understand fully, then it's probably not going to be very rewarding because you're not going to see the benefit. Or this, you go to the gym and just pause, look in the mirror and ask yourself, like, how do I feel right now? And just doing that will create an instant connection to the reward. Like that, this feels great. I feel like my muscles are working. My heart is beating faster. Like I'm getting healthier. And that's the reward that like kicks people into actually seeking, because when you go to the gym, I mean, not everyone, but a lot of people will seek out more, like harder weights, heavier weights, more reps, different workouts to stimulate the muscles. And I think it's because people are tracking things, measuring them, and actually trying to improve time over time. With sexual integrity and like porn, masturbation, sexual fantasy, that kind of thing, most everyone is tracking the wrong thing and measuring the absolute wrong thing. And by default,
Well, let's
people
get into
tend to,
that.
yeah.
What are the wrong things?
Well,
What are the right things?
Well, I would say it's not the wrong thing, but it's definitely not number one is sobriety days, like how many days you can go. But that's by default the thing that people choose and say, oh, that's the thing that will mean I'm succeeding or failing, is how many days I can go without acting out. It is a thing to track. It's a signal of success. But to say that that's the thing is like, because you're not healing. It doesn't mean you're healing anything. It doesn't mean you're growing internally. It doesn't mean that you're addressing the reason as to why the behavior exists in the first place. Yeah.
So I mean, across the board, it's a fun game to play. So one of my guys this week, the mentees, he was like, I was bored, so that's why I was tempted, to act out. And I was like, okay, so let's run some drills here. Next time you're bored, what do you want to do? And he's like, well, I want to learn guitar, or I want to learn how to get better at guitar, but I just don't have the discipline to sit down. It's like, yeah, because most people sit down and like, I want to be great at guitar, but I'm not great. So it's like this giant sea of open judgment on yourself because you want to be some random place in the ocean and you are in some other random place. But like getting from here to there is impossible unless you know where that is. So I was like, just practice one song. That's what I do, because I'm more of a drummer and I never got good at music. I mean, in terms of playing guitar. So I'm just learning one song. And it's so much fun because every time I invest in it, I can see that it's easier to play certain chords and certain chord, like progressions, and hopping from one chord to the next just becomes easier. My fingers get used to it. It's like more hand-eye coordination. And there's that sense of accomplishment in getting better at that one thing. So when you play the right game that sets you up to win, it's like we love gamification. And life can be like a game, right? But most people don't even know the game that they're playing, and they definitely don't know the rules. They just have this, imagine you get all suited up and you go out into like the American football, and I got to say that because there's Europeans listening here, like American football, and then you're like, hey guys, what's the game? And they're like, oh, you'll see, buddy. And then they just start playing, and you're going to die. You're going to get trounced by some guys who are 300 pounds, whose job it is to stomp on you, right? But if you know the rules, you can kind of figure it out. So, yeah, I would say that fulfillment is the goal, right? Like you said, measuring days sober doesn't mean days healthy and fulfilled. It's much more a measurement of like North Star goal is how many days I had where I really was like in the zone. I was really participating in life at the highest level. When you start optimizing your life for that, the sobriety days will come. But you have to figure out the rules of like, okay, so in my perfect day, I'm going to be doing some hard things. Even in Chanelguk, like you said, leisure industry, leisure doesn't mean sitting on the beach. That gets really old really fast. I've been traveling a lot and I've lived by the beach, and a lot of times you can live like next to the beach and not visit the beach that much because it's like, sand next to water. It's nice for walks, but like how long can you just sit and stare at the water? So it's not that. Leisure also means water skiing or wakeboarding or like skiing, snowboarding. Like things that do require you to get better at and get acclimated to, and chess and like all these things. So even in those situations, it requires you. We love structured games and play, and or learning an instrument or whatever. But if you play the wrong rules of that game, which is like to be perfect all the time or to have way too unrealistic expectations, it's going to kick you in the butt and you're going to want to quit, and then you're just going to want to revert, right? So then playing the right games. Think about the games that you want to play in your life, okay? Look at your life from day to day. Which games do you want to play? and then start envisioning what it would look like and feel like to be good at that game, and then start practicing. And regardless of what your reality is, so let's say you want to be a great singer and you start out and you're not good, just keep on envisioning what it's going to feel like when you are good, and you start optimizing on an unconscious level to be that, right? It's such a fun game. It's such a fun game. And every day really becomes like this fun game.
Yeah, that's great. Getting clear on the measures, the measuring sticks. Today I was talking with a brother who is going to be blessed with a Japanese wife, recently engaged, matched, right? And we were talking about Japanese language, and he was saying, "Oh yeah, I gotta learn Japanese." And when I asked him, like, what specifically do you want to do with Japanese? Because this is also where people get tripped up with language in particular. And he was like, "Oh, I don't know." And so I recommended, I was like, well, why don't you just make your focus understanding Japanese so that she can speak her native language to you? Because that's really what he wants, is he wants his wife to be able to speak freely to him, right, in her native language. And so that made it more clear. It's just like, well, just ask her to speak to you and just start there. And naturally you will pick it up over time and focus on comprehension rather than learning how to speak and write and read kanji and all that stuff. And so I think the same can be applied with like sexual integrity or like North Star stuff, or fulfillment. Like for me, a fulfilled day particularly is if I can wake up with a positive feeling of like gratitude. If I wake up and I feel a sense of positivity, that immediately sets definitely my morning and most likely the rest of my day up for fulfillment and success. And so what that requires for me to do is to go to bed early, to do some meditation before I sleep, because that kind of calms my mind and it focuses my attention on gratitude, on things are okay, things are great, rather than getting stuck in my head about what's going wrong and getting anxious about whatnot. So, and for different people, it's different forms of fulfillment. But I would say ultimately, like, if you ask me what a good measure of success is for sexual integrity, is that you have more days in a row of light than shadows. You have more light than shadows. And you're able to very quickly identify you have a shadow, and you are able to shed light on it and to kind of cast it out. And you string more and more days of that together. And naturally, of course, by nature of having no shadows, you will not really need or desire this feeling of escapism anymore, because you've already taken responsibility for the thing that you're trying to escape from. And I think that's a healthier way to view success with sexual integrity in particular, is that you are like on a broad level, because there's like nuances to each person's, North Star and, characters. But I would say at a broad scale, like ask ourselves, am I experiencing more light than darkness as a result of being in a program, for example, with Ascend or with Core or Radiant? Like, do I feel day by day I am experiencing more light, more positivity, less negativity? And that goes for, towards myself and towards other people. Do I feel more positive towards myself and less negative towards myself, and more loving towards other people and less negative, and if so, then I tell people, like, that's progress, dude. Like, even if you're making mistakes sometimes, like, but you're progressing. You are learning the fundamentals of what it's like to live a Hainun Chanoguk life and to live with no shadows. And I think that's the true work that we're asking people to do.
Yo, for real, yo. Yeah, I think that's great. That's a great metric in terms of like, yeah, the North Star goal concept is just about having that one day. Realistically, just having that one day. Because if you had that one day, you can multiply that into 2 days. And it's so liberating to know, like, wait a second, I have so much influence over my days if I just construct my days accordingly. And so, yeah, guys, figure out the games that you want to play throughout your days. So there's, some examples would be fitness, sleep, food, rest. How much rest do you want to get? Because some people have to force themselves to rest, myself included. Got to get out of the house every once in a while, go for a walk. Otherwise, I'm just working in front of a computer going crazy. Things like laughter, like how much laughter do you want to, like, we're supposed to laugh. We don't play that game enough. We're so serious. Yeah, which games do you want to play? Schooling, if it's education or if it's work, it's about getting better at stuff. Feels so good. Relationships, investing in relationships. When you start defining the games and then figuring out the rules, then you can start winning. And there's always rules. Even to every relationship, the rules are slightly different. People have different expectations on what they want from you and what they need from you and what you want from them. So you figure out those rules, you start playing that. Some people just really want to hug every once in a while. You start playing that game, the hugging game. Some people need you to really listen to them more. Play that game. And it's like you start winning at life and you didn't even know that you were playing a game. But we feel like losers when we're losing, but we don't know that we can win because we think that it's just like, it's like pass fail, not win lose, right? But we can definitely win one day at a time. Winning feels so good. When you win a day, you're like, yes. It's a very different feeling.
Yeah, it feels good to work hard all day and just like exhaust myself. At the end of the day, just like crash on the pillow and be like, yes, I put everything out today. That feels really good.
Yeah, for real. So everybody, figure out which games you're playing, start winning. Start figuring out the rules, start winning. So again, if it's a skill, progressively learn that skill. If it's learning how to discipline yourself with screen time, like Benjy said, get some software. That's the game that you need to play. And then you can graduate from needing software and just have really hard rules for yourself. Like, play the game and watch what happens when you start winning. You just get this feeling. You could be doing very similar actions throughout the day, but when you're winning at the game, you feel much better. There's a very big difference between going out and playing a sport and sucking and just like losing and having everybody yell at you versus being really competent and good and being a part of a winning team. It's like, it's night and day, right? But that's life. So yeah, good luck everybody. Let us know if you need a referee. I don't know how to end this metaphor, but it's taking over my life. So we're just going to end the podcast. Thank you, everybody.
Hey, did you know that our team wants to do more events? Well, if you want to bring the High Noon message to your community or group, then let us know and we'll try to work something out. There's a simple application that you can fill out right now at highnoon.org/invite. And one of our team members will get back to you to see what's possible. That's highnoon.org/invite. All right, see you in the next episode.